Welcome back. I'm Kim Valley. She's Fulyana Osborne, and this is Inside Exec. This week we're going to do something of an experiential case study, and it looks like it'll probably be in two parts. So we're looking at managing in an environment of constant change, and I think for all of us, the rate of change, whether it's brought about by economic circumstances or other issues, has been quite marked in the last 15 years, I guess we could say. So we've all got experience of working in an environment of change, but I think we are moving towards constant change. I don't think there is the opportunity for us to look at a business, at a corporate environment and say, okay, we've settled in this structure, we've settled on this client base, we've settled on this product, and now we're going to have a period of even 5 years where that's not going to change. I don't think the same sort of stability in terms of business and employment is available to us now as it might have been at the end of the 1990s. So let's look at and accept that we are faced with constant change in the business environment, in the work environment, and how can we manage in that environment, how can we lead in that environment. So Fulyana's going to run through her experiential case study, so it's a little bit true and a little bit of extended management ideas for you, and we'll look at whether that is applicable to other situations.
What I want to share with you is something that I was very, very impressed with one of the people I work with, and how she chose to handle that situation. I thought it was very commendable and certainly impressive. Let's call this person Mary, just to keep identities out of it. Mary is the leader of a team, and they're going through a major change, and it's not the first one in her organisation. Mary called the team meeting and reflected on the process. There's a good process in place, how to communicate change so it's consistent throughout the organisation, which includes communication at Mary's level and then from Mary to her team. So that's all is in place and worked well.
So when you say it's in place, I think this is the first area that causes some concern for people in a management sense is when do you start? How do you know it's the right time to start?
Right. That's normally made by the executive team or by the CEO executive team. And I think the most important ingredient of that is to say to people, we will not be able to tell you everything, not because we're hiding. We won't be able
So don't wait till you know it all.
Yes. So start earlier the better, and keep updates. And the updates will be, and just because something was omitted, it's not to be seen, and make sure that is clear. That is not because they're hiding it or anything. It's either could not be communicated because they didn't know about it, and it's just it's a work in progress. And that's something that normally a risk you take. You either wait till the end and tell them, or when you have all the answers and all of that, and that has a huge risk in people hearing and making up stories, or you absolutely be honest from front, but people have to be mature enough to know that it's dynamic and it will change. So in this particular organisation, that bit is good and it works. What Mary said to her team is, we've been through this before, some of us more than Tom than they can care to remember, and what we need to do is remember two things. We will have trust based on proven examples in the past. We will trust what management is telling us, what I'm telling you, and what I'll find out. You trust me because I've done it with you before and I was always honest, and that. Communication as clear and complete as humanly possible. And then we look at the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario, this is Mary's choice of handling it. So there's a process in place, and then she said what we're going to do is we're not going to let this take over and all our attention and focus. We're not going to forget about it and pretend it's not happening, so we're going to give it a little bit of focus, but we're going to focus on our business. However, before she went off the focus of the change itself, she said she's going to put something. She had a suggestion to the team that no matter how good they are, no matter how mature they are, and all of those things, there will be things that will come to their mind, or they see something or hear something that start playing on their mind. She didn't want them to ignore it and put their head in the sand, and she didn't want to do it behind closed doors. So she came up with the idea is maybe we nominate a person from the group to be selected by the team that will have that responsibility to say, if you hear something, if you're worried, an example of that says, I heard they're not going to open the office that's planned to be planned to open in the next 3 months. Is that true or false, or what can we know about it? To go to that person, and that person is empowered to come to Mary and to other teams and to senior management to find out what's the right answer is, and either take it off the agenda, give the answer, or say work in progress, whatever it is. So that will give people an avenue and a place to go to address things that happen as we go along. She told the team that for her, she decided to continue to focus very heavily on getting the deliverables of her and the team. And she said, because while change is happening, we still got to keep going. And she says, I'm going to tell you, some people will say, you're doing it because the company, we don't want the company to fail. I said, yeah, that goes with the salary. We're doing it because we want to do the right thing by the customer. Yeah, that also goes with the salary. We do it by the shareholder. Yeah, that goes with that. So what I want to do it for is because I want to be remembered for me as a total person, of what I've done for the organisation, the people within it and outside it. I do not want to be remembered for there was a crisis or a change and all of a sudden I'm a different person. I don't want to be that. She said to the team, I believe in each and every one of you to be the same, and I am extremely confident with the ability of each individual in our team to do the same and stay focused. Saying that, she just brought it up in the open, saying even in a very, very worst case scenario where our team is no longer required, even more so, I want to be remembered as an individual and as a team as we were the best to the end. We were true to ourselves to the end.
So important in that sense to keep remembering that the reason you're doing it, the reason you're taking the salary home is not altruistic. It's not for all of these other things. It is for you, but it is for you doing the best that you can do. And so that comes back to being confident about what you're doing and how you're doing it, and believing in the team. And there's an interesting concept that's starting to make the rounds in management terms about thinking of your team not as colleagues and not as workmates, but as family. They're your brothers and sisters and your aunties and uncles that are, and your cousins that are in this team. And when you think about your team in that sense, you think about them in a different way. You are committed to them in a different way. You can disagree with them, you can not like them particularly, except on Christmas Day, all of those sorts of things. But you do, at a fundamental level, think differently about the group you're in if you think of them as family rather than as work colleagues or workmates or associates. And it comes back to the analogy that is given is of the American Marines, or service people in general do not talk about fellow service people. They talk about their brother and sister officers or whatever they are.
With that, you always have each other's backs, don't you? Because what you're doing, even things are tough and people are human, so if one of the team member is feeling a little bit worried because of whatever the future might hold or something, you will feel that with them and you'll
find a way of helping them through.
Yes, right.
And so you become a much stronger team and a much more cohesive unit. And all this stuff can happen from the outside, but you are there as a strength protecting one another. And longer term, if the group does fall away and split off and go different directions, what you remember is that last touch point. As we do with everything, we remember the last touch point. So if the last touch point is positive, cohesive, good, then when your paths cross again, and they will cross again sometime during your career, then you think it was good working with that person. It was good working in that team. I would consider it again.
And you do keep in touch. And if we follow the family thing, when a member of your family goes to live overseas, for example, or interstate, initially it's very sad, and it's you miss them and you don't want them to go. But what you think about is, it would be lovely seeing them and spending quality time. So
how can I make the effort to work with them again?
Yes, and not only that, but it depends on your industry as well. Sometimes you become each other's customer or supplier or client. So even if you work for different people, and how much more productive that relationship and trust is at the heart of it would be. So in all those scenarios, whether the unit is gone, whether Mary herself is gone, and she covered that, and they said, well, no, and she said, no, you're already more than capable of running it yourself, really, and one person doesn't make a difference. I'll miss you, etc. There's no talk of that, but even if, so they're looking at the number of possibilities, and each and every one of them will be dealt with if and when it eventuates. But most importantly was, in the meantime, let's not just get swallowed up by that, and let's be the best as we always have been to the end under all circumstances. So that's where that scenario, and by the way, that was extremely successful, and their results were amazing. They always had good results, but in this circumstance even more so, because they felt it's like the last game, if you like.
So we're going to end part 1 there and leave you on tenterhooks about what actually happens in this case study, because there is further to the story, but you'll have to join us for part 2 of that. So for now, that's the end of part 1 case study on managing in a constant environment of change. I'm Kim Bailey, she's Fulyana Osborne, and this is Inside Exec.